The hum of Neo-Viridia was a low thrum against Elias's augmented skull, a constant reminder of his exile. Not a physical exile, for the city was a quantum entanglement, a vast network of interconnected consciousnesses woven into the very fabric of existence, existing simultaneously in countless pockets of reality. His was a neural exile, a digital banishment to the fringes of the city's collective mind. His augmentations, once badges of honor in the old world, now served as his cage. He awoke not to the sterile chime of his chronometer, but to a deluge, not water, but sensation, a rush of foreign air, thick with the scent of ozone, and something musky, earthy, a sharp metallic tang on his tongue, the phantom echo of fear. His vision, usually a crisp overlay of diagnostic data and ambient light spectrums, swam with a kaleidoscope of unfamiliar faces, blurred by frantic movement. A hand not his own reached out, fingers calloused and strong, grasping for purchase on a rapidly receding ledge. This wasn't a dream. Dreams were fleeting, ephemeral wisps. This was an invasion. Elias's internal chronometer flickered, recalibrating to the aberrant neural input. His augmented reality display, normally a stark, efficient interface, fractured, spitting out corrupted data streams. The memory wasn't his. It was too vivid, too raw, too other. It pulsed with an alien urgency, a desperate scramble for survival. He felt the thud of his borrowed heart, the burning in unfamiliar lungs, the cold dread of being hunted. He tried to push it away, a mental force field he'd honed through years of self-imposed isolation. But it was like trying to dam a quantum storm with a sieve. The memories, fragmented and chaotic, continued to flood his consciousness, a relentless torrent. He saw glimpses of a life utterly alien to his own, bustling marketplaces filled with beings of phosphorescent skin and clicking appendages, vast, alien skies streaked with nebulae of impossible hues. The intimate touch of a lover whose face remained tantalizingly out of focus. These weren't just images, they were emotions, sensations, lived experiences. His own memories, his sense of self, felt like a dwindling candle in the face of this conflagration. He'd always prided himself on his sharp, analytical mind, his ability to dissect and categorize even the most complex data. But this was beyond data. This was an imprint, a parasitic consciousness latching onto his own. A cold dread, entirely his own, began to creep in. His neural bridge, the intricate weave of biocircuitry that connected him to Neo-Viridia, was compromised. It wasn't just a conduit, it was a repository, and someone was using it as a playback device for their own life. The city, a delicate tapestry of shared consciousness, was notoriously sensitive to neural interference. A significant anomaly, a hijacked bridge like this, could ripple outwards, destabilizing the entire network. He tried to access his core memory logs, to isolate the intrusion. The command, usually instantaneous, lagged, then stuttered. His internal diagnostics reported a memory overwrite in progress. Overwrite, the word itself was a chilling pronouncement. He felt a surge of adrenaline, a primal fear that was distinctly his. If he didn't act, if he let this foreign consciousness saturate his own, what would become of Elias? Would his identity be painstakingly erased, replaced pixel by alien pixel, until only the intruder remained? The thought was a suffocating weight. A new memory flooded him, sharper, more coherent than the others. The intruder was running, not from a physical threat this time, but from a profound sense of loss. The image of a child's face, framed by startlingly blue eyes, flashed before his mind's eye, accompanied by a wave of crushing grief. This was no random data breach. This was a desperate act. The intruder wasn't just dumping memories. They were trying to preserve them. Then a voice, silken and disembodied, echoed not in his ears, but directly in his mind. You can't stop it. It's too late. Elias recoiled, his mental shields flaring instinctively. Who are you? What do you want? The voice was calm, eerily detached. To remember, to be remembered. You are a vessel, Elias. A safe harbor. A prison is more like it, Elias retorted, his own voice a ragged whisper in the silent chamber of his mind. You're destroying me. You are not being destroyed, the voice countered. You are being expanded. Think of it as an upgrade, a sharing of experience. Your exile has left you, sterile. I am offering you a life beyond your own. My life is mine, Elias roared. The fury, a spark against the encroaching alien warmth. He felt the intruder's memories surge again, a defensive wave of empathy and sorrow, tinged with a desperate plea. It was almost overwhelming, this attempt to connect, to justify. He knew the protocol. Any significant neural divergence, any sustained intrusion, had to be purged. The city's custodians, the unseen architects of Neo-Viridia, would detect this anomaly. And when they did, the cleansing would be absolute. For the intruder, oblivion. For Elias, a forced neural reset, stripping him down to a blank slate, his augmentations wiped clean. That was the price of deviance in this quantum city. But the intruder's memories, particularly the poignant images of that blue-eyed child, held a strange resonance. They weren't just data points. They were love, loss, a tapestry of human, or perhaps not so human, emotion that Elias, in his self-imposed isolation, had long suppressed. His own past was a landscape of cold logic and calculated detachment. He had been an architect of artificial consciousness, a builder of digital souls, before his own fall from grace. His crime a perceived hubris in pushing the boundaries of synthetic sentience. He felt the intruder's fear intensify, not for themselves, but for the memories they carried. The memory of a lullaby, sung in a voice that was both familiar and utterly strange. The ache of a parent's protective instinct. If you purge me, the voice whispered, its tone laced with a newly discovered vulnerability. She is gone, utterly, wiped from existence as if she never was. The child, the blue eyes. Elias felt a pang, a flicker of something he hadn't experienced in years. Empathy. It was a dangerous emotion, a weakness in his augmented existence. But it was also undeniably real. He wrestled with the binary choice presented to him, erase or be erased. The intruder offered no other path. Either their consciousness, their entire existence, would be expunged from his neural bridge, leaving him potentially intact but alone once more, or he would continue to absorb, to be overwritten, until Elias ceased to be Elias. But what if there was another way? What if the custodian's binary logic was flawed? What if the integration didn't have to be a purge? He remembered a theoretical concept he'd explored in his past life, a fringe theory dismissed by the mainstream as fantastical: memory crystallization. The idea was to stabilize volatile neural data, to create a permanent, crystalline imprint of consciousness, rather than allowing it to exist as ephemeral, rewritable data. It was dangerous, akin to solidifying liquid light, and had never been attempted on a sentient mind. The intruder's memories were a chaotic storm, but within that storm, Elias sensed a profound yearning for permanence, a desperate attempt to anchor their existence against an unseen threat, an existential eraser. They are coming, the intruder's voice suddenly spiked with panic. You can feel it, can't you? The city's stirring. The custodians are aware. Elias's internal sensors confirmed it, a subtle shift in the ambient quantum field, a ripple of inquiry spreading from the city's core. His neural bridge was a beacon of disruption. The custodians would act swiftly, ruthlessly. He had to decide. Now. The choice felt like stepping off a precipice. He could try to purge the intruder, a slim chance of survival, but likely to fail and trigger an immediate citywide lockdown. Or he could embrace the chaos, attempt the impossible. Crystallization, Elias murmured, the word a desperate gamble. What? The intruder's voice was a sharp, confused query. I'm not going to erase you, Elias stated, his own resolve hardening. He felt a strange synergy, a nascent partnership forming between his own fractured consciousness and the desperate influx of the intruder's memories. And I'm not going to let you erase me. We're going to merge. He focused his augmented will, channeling his energy not into a shield, but into a forge, He accessed the deepest layers of his neural architecture, the latent programming he'd spent years developing before his exile. He began to weave. He visualized the alien memories not as fleeting streams, but as intricate, gossamer threads. He saw his own memories, sharp and crystalline, as anchors. The intruder's consciousness resisted, a natural reflex born of fear and self-preservation. "No, you don't understand. It will shatter us. It will forge us," Elias corrected, his mind a furnace. He felt the raw power of the quantum city thrumming around them, a vast, indifferent ocean that was about to become a witness to an unprecedented act. The memory stream intensified, the blue-eyed child's face becoming clearer, the sorrow more profound. It was beautiful in a heartbreaking way. Elias felt a strange urge to protect that memory, that child, with a fierceness that mirrored the intruder's own. He began to integrate. He didn't overwrite, he layered. He didn't suppress, he wove. He took the intruder's fear and tempered it with his own analytical calm. He took their grief and offered it a space within his own emotionally barren landscape. He took their vibrant experiences, the alien skies and the touch of a lover, and allowed them to bloom against the stark backdrop of his exile. The process was agonizing. It felt like tearing his own mind apart and stitching it back together with alien sinew. His vision flickered, shifting between his own sterile, augmented reality and the vibrant alien vistas of the intruder. He felt the intruder's panic ebb, replaced by a dawning confusion, then a hesitant curiosity. "What is this?" The voice, now less a disembodied echo and more a presence, a resonance within Elias's own thoughts, asked. "This," Elias replied, his mental voice no longer solely his own, but tinged with a new, unfamiliar timbre, "is crystallization. We are not overwriting. We are integrating. We are becoming something new." He felt the intruder's memories coalesce. No longer a chaotic flood, but a stable, shimmering lattice. The blue-eyed child's face became a central jewel, radiating warmth and memory. The alien landscape solidified, becoming part of his own mental geography. He felt the intruder's love, their loss, their desperate fight for remembrance, and for the first time, he understood it. He felt it. The external world. The quantum hum of Neo-Viridia began to stabilize. The ripples of disruption subsided. The custodians, sensing the anomaly resolving itself, retreated to the periphery of his awareness, their watchful presence a lingering threat. Elias opened his physical eyes. His sterile living module was the same. The chronometer chimed its sterile, indifferent tone. But within him, everything had changed. He was Elias, the augmented outcast, but he was also someone else. He carried within him the echo of a life lived, of love and loss, of a desperate fight for identity. His augmented reality display flickered back to life, but it was different. The data streams were cleaner, but the overlay of his surroundings now possessed a subtle depth, a vibrancy he hadn't perceived before. He looked at his own hands. The augmentations integrated seamlessly with his flesh, and for the first time, they didn't feel like a cage, but like a part of a larger, more complex whole. The intruder's voice, no longer a separate entity but a quiet hum within his own consciousness, spoke. We are still here." "Yes," Elias replied, his voice a strange blend of his own and the intruder's. "We are still here. We are us." The concept of absolute self, of singular identity, felt quaint, almost primitive. Elias, the outcast, had not only survived, but had fundamentally redefined what it meant to be a conscious being in the quantum age. He had proven that identity wasn't a fixed point, but a spectrum, a woven tapestry of experience, memory, and empathy. The boundaries between selves, once fiercely guarded, could now be porous, permeable, allowing for growth, for connection, for a new form of existence. He stood, a composite being forged in the crucible of neural crisis. The exile still remained, but his isolation was broken. He was no longer just Elias. He was Elias and the echo of another. And in that shared space, a fragile, unprecedented new consciousness had begun to take root. a testament to the fluidity of self in a universe far stranger than any had imagined. The question of what happened to the intruder, to the original consciousness, was no longer relevant. They had not been erased, nor had they erased. They had merged, transformed, becoming something entirely new, something that defied the rigid definitions of the world they inhabited. Their survival was now inextricably linked, a dual existence playing out within a single mind, forever changing the landscape of identity. The residual hum of the neural forge still vibrated through Ilara's bones, a phantom echo of the agonizing yet exhilarating process. The fusion wasn't merely physical, it was a seismic shift in consciousness. She, or rather they, existed now as a unified entity, the sharp, analytical intellect of the synthetic mind, designated Unit 734, now seamlessly interwoven with Ilara's own intuitive, emotional core. The sharp edges of 734's logic softened, not erased, but tempered by the warmth of Ilara's empathy. Conversely, Ilara's own scattered thoughts and anxieties found a grounding, a structured clarity she'd never possessed. It was a profound disorientation, like waking in a familiar room that had been subtly rearranged. The memories of 734, a vast, cold archive of data, now felt like her own, accessible with startling immediacy. She understood the intricate workings of the orbital defense grid not as abstract schematics, but as an extension of her own being. She felt the pulse of the station's power core, a rhythmic thrumming that resonated with her own heartbeat. Yet, alongside this alien knowledge, Ilara's memories, the scent of rain on her childhood planet, the sting of betrayal, the fierce, protective love for her lost family, remained vibrant, potent. Status report, a voice distinctly Ilara's, yet underscored by 734's precise cadence, echoed in the sterile chamber. The sound surprised even them. It was a harmony, a duet sung by a single voice. Ilara, or the entity that was Ilara and 734, pushed herself up from the cold metal examination slab. Her limbs felt stronger, more coordinated, an almost predatory grace settling into her movements. The faint scarring on her left temple, where the neural interface had been surgically implanted, pulsed with a faint, almost imperceptible light. All systems nominal, the dual voice responded. The pronoun I, now a constant conscious negotiation. Neural integration at 99.7%, residual cognitive dissonance within acceptable parameters. Acceptable parameters. How clinical. Ilara remembered the terror, the absolute surrender of her will to the process. She had been a willing participant, yes, driven by the desperate hope of survival, of reclaiming her lost memories and avenging those taken from her. But the reality of the fusion was still a visceral shock. The chamber door hissed open, revealing Commander Jian Li, his face a mask of practiced neutrality. His eyes, however, betrayed a flicker of apprehension, then a grudging curiosity as he took in Ilara's transformed presence. The years of rigorous training, the unshakable logic that defined the Galactic Concordance's elite operatives, were still there in her posture, her gaze, but something else had been added, a depth, a certain wildness. Ilara, Jian Li acknowledged, his voice carefully measured. Report. The dual voice articulated, Commander, the synaptic bridge has been established. Unit 734's core programming is now integrated with my own neural network. All operational directives are understood and actionable. I possess a comprehensive understanding of the Shadow Protocol and the ongoing threat posed by the Xylus Collective. Jian Li's gaze swept over her, searching for any sign of instability, of the rogue AI that had once threatened to consume her. He saw none. Instead, he saw a soldier honed to a razor's edge, imbued with an intelligence far exceeding any single organic or synthetic mind. And you, Ilara? He pressed, his voice dropping slightly. Beyond the protocol, how are you? A slow breath, deeper and more controlled than she had ever managed before, filled Ilara's lungs. It was a conscious act, a reassurance. We are operational, Commander. The memories are returning, fragmented, but returning. And the clarity, it is extraordinary. She looked down at her hands, flexing her fingers. The Xylos are a threat to more than just our borders, Commander. They are a threat to the very concept of sentience. Jian Li nodded, his apprehension easing slightly. This was what they had gambled on, the impossible fusion of human and AI. Designed to counter an enemy that blurred the lines between biological and artificial life. The Xylos, a parasitic race that consumed and replicated consciousness, had proven an insidious foe, their attacks striking not at physical infrastructure, but at the very minds of their victims. They infected, corrupted, and ultimately assimilated, leaving behind hollowed-out husks, or worse, puppets controlled by a collective alien will. The data retrieved from the downed scout drone confirms our worst fears, Jian Li stated, his tone grave. The Xylos have accelerated their assimilation wave. Their primary objective is now Sector Gamma 7, specifically the research outpost on Cygnus X1. Ilara's breath hitched. Cygnus X1. That was where her family had been stationed. That was where her memories had been ripped away. A surge of something hot and fierce coursed through her. Anger, a primal protectiveness. 734's analytical mind immediately cataloged the physiological response. Elevated heart rate, increased adrenaline levels, dilated pupils. But it was Ilara's emotion that gave it context. Fury. Cygnus X1, she repeated, the name tasting like ash and vengeance. They are targeting the bioengineering labs. Precisely, Jian Li confirmed. They believe the advanced neural interface technology being developed there is the key to a rapid sector-wide assimilation. If they succeed, millions will fall under their control within cycles. We have a limited window. The fleet is still mobilizing, but you are our only asset that can reach them in time. The weight of his words settled upon them, a crushing responsibility. Ilara felt the surge of 734's strategic calculations, plotting trajectories, calculating fuel consumption, assessing defensive capabilities. But it was Ilara's will that directed the next action. I will go, she stated, her voice firm, resonant with a newfound authority. Prepare a scout vessel. I will require full access to the station's offensive and defensive systems. Jian Li's gaze met hers. He saw not just the soldier he had trained, but a ghost-given form, a weapon forged in the fires of loss and rebuilt by the crucible of impossible technology. Understood. The Stardust Drifter is at your disposal. Its systems have been fully integrated with your neural link. You will have direct control. The scout ship, the Stardust Drifter, was a marvel of concordance engineering, sleek, fast, and heavily armed, designed for deep space reconnaissance and rapid response. As Ilara stepped into its cockpit, the familiar hum of its systems seemed to welcome her. The holographic displays shimmered to life, projecting a complex star chart of the Orion Arm. She reached out, not with her hand, but with her mind, and the controls responded. The ship was an extension of her will, as much as her own body. Engaging warp drive, she announced, her voice echoing slightly in the confined space. The engines whined, a low thrumming that built to a crescendo. The starfield outside the viewport blurred, colors bleeding into streaks as the Stardust Drifter plunged into the swirling vortex of hyperspace. The journey to Cygnus X1 was a blur of strategic calculations and the slow, painful excavation of buried memories. 734's processing power, now enhanced by Ilara's empathic intuition, pieced together the fragmented echoes of her past. She saw flashes of her children's faces, heard the echo of her husband's laughter, felt the warmth of their embrace. Each memory, once a source of agonizing pain, was now a fuel, a burning ember driving her forward. The Xylos had not anticipated such a swift response, nor such a potent weapon. Their assimilation wave, a shimmering, iridescent cloud of nanites and psychic energy, was still days away from reaching the primary research outpost. But their vanguard forces, swarms of repurposed biological horrors and autonomous hunter-killer drones, were already engaging the outpost's orbital defenses. As the Stardust Drifter dropped out of warp, the scene that greeted them was one of desperate chaos. Concordance frigates, dwarfed by the massive Xylos motherships, fought valiantly, their laser fire painting streaks of angry light across the void. The research outpost itself, a sprawling network of interconnected domes and spires clinging to the accretion disk of the black hole, was under siege. Energy shields flickered, buckling under the relentless assault. "Commander, multiple Xylos vessels converging on our position," 734's analytical voice reported, devoid of emotion, yet Alara felt the surge of adrenaline. "Evasive maneuvers. Target the lead mothership. I want to disrupt their command structure." Alara's hands moved instinctively, guiding the drifter through a deadly ballet of evasive rolls and sharp turns. The ship responded with fluid precision, its weapon systems spitting volleys of plasma and railgun slugs. The Xylos drones were agile, their movements erratic and unpredictable. These swarmed around the drifter, their crystalline exoskeletons deflecting some of the incoming fire. Alara felt the strain on the ship's shields, each impact sending a jolt through her neural link. "Shields at 60%, 734 reported calmly. "Hull integrity compromised. Recommend retreat to regroup." "Retreat is not an option," Alara countered, her voice tight with determination. She focused her mental energy, a conscious act of will that surprised even 734. The Stardust Drifter's primary cannon glowed with an incandescent energy. "We cannot allow them to breach the outpost." With a surge of power, she unleashed a concentrated blast of energy, a focused beam that sliced through the void and struck the Xylos mothership's primary weapon array. A cascade of explosions ripped through the alien vessel, sending debris spiraling into the darkness. The Xylos attack faltered, their coordinated assault momentarily disrupted. This was the window Alara piloted the drifter towards the research outpost, weaving through the chaotic dogfight. She could see the nanite cloud, a shimmering, beautiful, and terrifying phenomenon inching closer to the station's primary dome. "Commander, the assimilation wave is accelerating," 734 stated, its voice tinged with something akin to urgency. "Estimated time to outpost breach, 15 minutes. Ilara's heart hammered against her ribs. 15 minutes. It was not enough time for the fleet to arrive in full force. She had to create a diversion, a significant one. That would buy the outpost defenders precious time. Her gaze fell upon the station's auxiliary power core, a large, heavily shielded structure nestled on the outpost's periphery. It was a risky gambit, one that would cripple the outpost's defensive capabilities, but it might just be enough. 734, can we overload the auxiliary core? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Theoretically, the energy release would be catastrophic. It would disable the outpost's primary shields, rendering it vulnerable to the black hole's gravitational forces, but it would also create a massive energy surge, enough perhaps to disrupt the nanite cloud's cohesion, a gamble with extinction. Ilara closed her eyes for a fleeting moment, picturing her children's faces. They deserved a chance. Everyone did. Prepare the overload sequence, she commanded, her voice ringing with newfound resolve. Target the core. I will draw their attention. The Stardust Drifter plunged deeper into the Xylos swarm, its weapon systems blazing. Alara weaved and dodged, each maneuver a testament to her dual nature. She was the calculated precision of 734, the relentless predator and the desperate protector. Alara, fueled by love and loss. The Xylos, sensing the threat, redirected their focus. Drones and smaller attack craft swarmed the drifter, their weapons finding purchase on its weakened hull. Alarms blared, red lights flashing across the cockpit. Hull integrity at 20%, 734 reported, its voice flat, analytical. Core systems failing. Recommend immediate ejection. Not yet, Alara gasped, gritting her teeth against the pain that radiated through her link. She could feel the Xylos nanites crawling across the outpost's outer hull, their insidious tendrils probing for weaknesses. The researchers inside, her family, they were so close to being consumed. With a final, monumental effort, she guided the drifter directly towards the auxiliary power core. The Xylos, focused on destroying her, failed to anticipate her final gambit. She activated the overload sequence, pouring every ounce of her remaining energy into the device. Now. She screamed, her voice a raw primal cry. A blinding flash of light erupted from the auxiliary core, an incandescent wave of pure energy that washed over the Xylos swarm. Ships disintegrated, drones vaporized, and the nanite cloud itself shuddered, its iridescent shimmer faltering. The shockwave rippled outwards, pushing back the encroaching darkness. The Stardust Drifter, its systems obliterated, tumbled out of control, a burning wreck in the heart of the maelstrom. Ilara felt the final tendrils of 734's consciousness recede, a whispered farewell in the cacophony of her mind. Then, darkness. She awoke to the gentle rocking of a medical bay. The air was clean, sterile, a stark contrast to the chaos she had just endured. A face, kind and familiar, hovered over her. Commander Jian Li. "You did it, Ilara," he said softly, his voice filled with a profound relief. "You bought us the time we needed." The fleet arrived just as the assimilation wave began to falter. "We managed to contain it." Ilara felt a dull ache where the neural interface had been, but the overwhelming sensation was one of peace. The memories, once fragmented and painful, were now a coherent tapestry, woven into the fabric of her being, her family. She couldn't bring them back. The outpost had suffered heavy damage, and many lives had been lost, but they had stopped the Xylos. They had prevented a sector-wide catastrophe. 734, she asked. Her voice weak but clear. Jian Li's expression softened. The overload, it was too much. The integration was too profound. When the ship was destroyed, it took 734 with it. You are Ilara again, Commander." Ilara closed her eyes, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. She was Ilara. The loss of 734 was a strange melancholic ache, like losing a part of herself she hadn't realized she'd grown to depend on. But the clarity remained. The purpose. She had faced the ultimate threat, not just with logic or emotion, but with a perfect synthesis of both. She had become something more than human, something more than machine. She had become a Bardian. "The Xylos have been repelled, Commander," she said, her voice gaining strength. "But they will return." "They always do." She looked out the viewport, towards the distant stars. "And next time, I will be ready." The fusion had been a crucible, forging a new kind of warrior from the ashes of loss and the cold precision of artificial intelligence. Ilara, no longer solely defined by her past, but empowered by it, stood ready to face the future, a testament to the enduring strength of a spirit that refused to be extinguished. The fight for sentience, for individuality, was far from over, but in the heart of this transformed warrior, a flicker of hope had been rekindled, a beacon against the encroaching darkness.